I'm excited about this panel. It's such a broad topic. It's really hard to figure out how to jump in, so we're going to jump in, but I would say that these days, the platforms, so I think it used to be that technology was the hard part, it was the disruptor, and technology seems to now have not been the disruptor, but what is disruptful still are business models. So while the technology's become ubiquitous, and it's much easier to deliver video on the internet, etc., the business models are still a mess, and everyone is still trying different things, and you can see that with the rise of fast channels and some of the changes that are happening in the subscription platforms. So these are all the things we're going to cover today. I'm really excited about this panel. I want to allow them just a couple minutes each to introduce themselves and say hi to the crowd. So we'll start with you, Zach. Cool.
Thanks, John. So, hi, everybody. I'm Zach Feldberg. Is this working all right? You hear me? Okay. I'm Zach Feldberg. I currently am the Director of Current Production for Comedy at CBC. That's a secondment, so it's a temporary role. My normal job, and one that I've been doing in different forms for about 8 years at CBC, is overseeing digital originals, now called GEM originals, on the scripted side. So won't get too deep into what that means, but the shorthand is it's mostly short form series that live on our streaming service, CBC GEM. And again, these days it's all scripted. Historically, we've sort of done all sorts of different things. And they all kind of play by the interesting business model, the interesting and evolving business model that John just alluded to, which we'll have lots to talk about and hopefully lots of time to talk about today. So I'm excited to be on this panel and looking forward to the conversation. Over to you.
I'm starting to think I might be like the Canadian doppelganger for Zach here, because I also work across an initiative called Digital Originals. I don't know who came up with the name first, but it's catchy. My name is Luani Ahmed. I work for a broadcast in Australia called SBS, and that is the multilingual, multicultural and Indigenous broadcaster for Australia. So hands up, represent. And it sort of brings two key areas of interest of mine, working in development and production. So I work end to end across our long form slate as well as our short form digital originals. But it also brings my passion and advocacy for change in the industry and to see our sector become more inclusive in its practices, more representative on screen and off. So at SBS, we commission to our charter, and practically that looks like we have a set of guidelines that are our equity and inclusion guidelines. In Australia, I'm also one of the co-chairs of the Screen Diversity Inclusion Network, which is a 22-member strong network of broadcasters, streamers, guilds, industry-associated organisations who are banding together to advocate for change in the industry, and looking into some research into what the profile of people working behind the scenes looks like in the industry. That's me. Yes. Hello.
Welcome.
Toronto's delightful. I'm so happy to be here. You are. You're all very delightful. You're all very nice. That's a good word.
And that's a lot of work.
Yes, I'm tired.
Okay, there we go. I got to speak a little louder. My name's Elizabeth True. I'm manager of digital development at Bell Media, and my agenda with the company focuses on 3 key areas of our business. The first is bringing in talent from the traditional and new media spaces into our TV and long form development pipeline. The second is mining the digital and social landscape for fresh and exciting IP. And then the third piece of the puzzle is seeking out content partnerships that will help to build Bell Media's footprint, digital footprint, and also expand our cultural relevancy and position in the market. So that's sort of where I'm at. I'm sure we're going to expand deeper into what all of those things mean.
That is a lot. You've got a lot going on. Go ahead, Lucas.
Yeah, hey, I'm Lucas Neppert. I work for Blue Ant International. We're based here in Toronto, but we're an international distribution company. My team looks after content partnerships and acquisitions. That means, filmmakers and producers either based here in North America or in Europe or anywhere in the world, really. looking for content that can sit in our content catalog that we then take out to the world to sell to streamers and broadcasters. Blue Ant Media in general, which we're part of, is a bigger company that does a bunch of other things as well. We run our own channels, including fast channels, and we also have some production companies that are part of Blue Ant. So we work quite closely with them. So hopefully I'll be able to answer some of these questions as it relates to fast as well.
Yes, please. Yes, please. So just before we get into questions, I wanted to do a quick survey on the audience, the people in this room. So who in this room is a producer, creator, just so we understand who the players are? Awesome. Okay, so the majority of the people. Of those people, do you have something in development or finished, et cetera, et cetera? So where are you in the stage? Okay. You have something, you have either in the process of making or you have a project made. Okay, so that was more than half, I think, of that first group. I'm curious, scripted? Who's scripted? Who's unscripted? You can raise your hand twice. Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's a good mix of scripted, unscripted, and projects in various stages in the pipeline, which is pretty fantastic. Let me just ask you to try to figure out the stage you are in your careers. How many of that project, how many of you is it the first project? Okay, how many's got two, like it's your second, yeah. And 3 or more? Okay, awesome. So it's a really good mix of experience level as well. So you guys are at various stages of scripted, unscripted, and also in your career. So that's really useful for us to try to help answer, target the questions. As I said off the top, this topic is really broad. I just thought we would start, when I think of all the new entrants in the space, the different business models, the different players in Canada, Pluto has launched, Tubi's been here for a while, Roku is here, acquiring, etc. Blue Ant and others have their own fast channels and distribution. When you think of the platform trends, what are the trends that excite you? What are the things that you're thinking, this is a really exciting time for us? So the question for anyone on the panel who wants to jump in.
I have one thought on this that I'll share, and it's one that I think is more aspirational, but one that I think is exciting for producers of shorter format or like unusual format content, which is the proliferation. I mean, obviously the proliferation of streamers, but I think there are some specialty streamers that I'm intrigued by, and I think that could become a really interesting piece of this business model. And I'll use one just very specific example from my personal life where my parents subscribed to Chayflix, which is like Jewish and Israeli content, very specialized. And, at that point, when you're that specific, format no longer matters at all. Like it's really, you're in there because there's a specific thing that you love or that you're interested in, and you've spent years hunting and pecking and trying to find that content on other platforms, and then someone has aggregated it and curated it in a way that is exactly for you. It's the thing that you want. And then suddenly it's like, oh yeah, I truly don't, this could be 5 minutes or it could be a feature and I don't really care. And I think I would like to think that there will be more and more of those, and just people carving out those niches, and either culturally specific or obviously there's genre specific work too. But I don't know. That's something I have a lot of hope there. Like I feel like that's an exciting thing for our part of the business where, yeah, I think it's the audience is going to be like tightly packed into these sort of things, and hopefully, they can continue to thrive on the subscription level too. So on maybe a more micro level, I'm excited about the potential there.
That's a good one. Because the technology's become easier, you can see more of these niche business model again. Is that a subscription product?
It is, yeah. I forget what it costs. It's like they do promotional, like annual subscriptions and stuff. But I want to say it's like $6 or $7 a month, and it's like it's not cheap, but it's sort of it's less than your Netflix or Disney Plus subscription.
Yeah.
And I hope it's working. Like I hope we can see lots more of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's so valuable that you can get so granular when it comes to these platforms about what type of content that you're seeking as a consumer. I mean, a trend for me that just speaks to what we're doing at Bell Media is really this embrace of digital content creators in traditional media. Can I also, I'm going to steal John's role a little bit and ask, is anybody like, or does anybody consider themselves like an online content creator as well? Like, is anybody leveraging, okay, yeah, so we have 2 in the house, which is awesome.
When you say online content creator, do you mean like self-published social media?
Exactly, like
versus
building their
traditional-
own sort of brand, personality, identities online. Yeah.
Couple more hands, yeah.
And maybe in addition to, releasing projects, short form, long form, scripted series, unscripted. But so I'm really seeing that as a trend and an embrace in the traditional media landscape. Some examples that, resonate with me and things that might be helpful for the crowd here is, as an example, Letterkenny, right? How that show got its start was there was one episode, just a pilot shot, went on YouTube. Jared Kiso launched it into the ether, and the Reddit community just had so much engagement with this piece of content. And it came in from the sidelines to Bell Media, and eventually it ended up getting a green light, which was very exciting. And, connecting the dots here as to what my role and my responsibilities with the company is again, we're really trying to mine deeply into these spaces and these platforms and not only find content creators that maybe come from an independent background, but also finding intellectual property and format ideas that we can partner on.
And so you're finding, though, I think what you're describing is it's a non-traditional way of finding that IP, where before it was a meeting and a pitch.
Exactly.
And now you guys are actually actively watching for these things.
Exactly.
So when you do that, do you know, what do these guys need to know about the success they see or the non-success? Is it like you're looking at audience, you're looking at a certain platform for a certain genre?
Yeah, there's so many different types of criteria that we analyze and evaluate, but I would say, having a built-in community and audience is something that we are very attracted to. In addition to that, it really, the content needs to sort of speak to the timing of our programming needs across our platforms. Fresh new angles and things that, storytelling and voices that haven't been heard before is very key to us as well. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Any trends? Yeah. Go ahead, Lucas. Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, no, you go.
Okay.
I was just going to copy pretty much what you both said, but mostly what Zach said, because I'm his twin.
There you go. I was just going to touch briefly, you mentioned business models before, and obviously we see the SVOD market being very saturated at the moment with everyone launching, their subscription-based models. And I think an effect of that is, and part of the reason why FAST is becoming so popular at the moment, is that viewers are moving towards, free options that might be ad-supported, but they don't require a monthly subscription. Everyone, there's a potential recession looming. There's a lot of stuff going on why people might be interested in watching free content. And that's an interesting trend. On the one hand, it can be a bit scary. On the other hand, it creates new categories for us as a distributor. FAST is almost like a new category in which we can group certain types of content, especially looking at some of the older content that we have in our catalog or that might be pitched to us as an acquisition. All of a sudden becomes more viable because FAST is an option, AVOD is an option that becomes more and more relevant to us.
One of those positive trends, I think, is that rise of FAST channels because it's more opportunity. Both Blue and, so does everyone know what a FAST channel is? I think actually, okay, so I think at a panel yesterday, Lucas described it. So you should do that again for the new set of audience, which is to tell us what are FAST channels exactly?
Sure, why not? Well, basically FAST stands for free ad-supported streaming television. And it's essentially, if you picture traditional free TV, but it's just online. So it's a stream that you might be able to pause and play, but it's not VOD, so you can't just choose a program you want to watch. It's a stream that has been curated by someone, and it's a 24-hour stream that you can tune in and out of, just like regular television, but it is online and it is free, and every once in a while an ad will pop up, just like free TV used to be.
But distinct,
linear.
sorry, just for my own clarity, but distinct from being linear that's live streamed, it's specifically for online. Like it's specifically digital. So
Yeah.
it doesn't also coexist as a linear channel.
Exactly. I think that's the big difference. It's not a simulcast of a free TV broadcast. It's just its own thing. And you'll see sort of very specialized fast channels a lot of the time. So very focused on one genre or even just on one
Show.
show.
If you
It
have
could
enough
just be like
episodes.
Fresh Prince 24/7, something like that, you know? Yeah.
Not saying that's working, the Fresh Prince channel, but maybe if people want 24 hours of Fresh Prince all day, yeah. Friends.
Is there a mix of live programming and like scripted?
Yeah, I think, at least in my experience, there's a lot of unscripted in that space and a lot of sort of nostalgia content when it comes to scripted. So it's probably something we can touch on later when we talk about web series in the context of fast. But that's usually what we see. So like if it's a genre-focused channel, it might, for example, be Blue Ant has a channel called Haunt TV, which is very focused on paranormal/horror in the factual space, and you know exactly what you're going to get when you tune in. And then you'll see some of the more traditional companies, something like Paramount might have a fast channel on Pluto that just plays old episodes of South Park or something like that. I think when it comes to new scripted and short form, fast might still need to kind of catch up a little bit and kind of generate the kind of revenues required for that. But it's definitely on the horizon, I think.
And it's an app in your TV, right? So it's Tubi or Pluto, and it's on whatever your connected TV is. You open that app, it literally looks like a TV channel grid, and you're just scrolling through channels and then picking whatever it might be, but they're just not traditional linear channels. Yeah, go ahead with the question now. Let's jump in.
1, 2. All right.
So the next question's in the back corner. Let's remember. let's remember the game we're playing.
You ready? My question's very quick. You said that it might also be scary. Why?
That's a good question. So I'm saying scary for us as a distributor, perhaps. I mean, if we, as Blue Ant, as a company, we're pretty early to the trend, so I think we're in a very good position to react to these changes in the market. But there's one thing is a lot of the FAST and AVOD channels out there operate on a rev share basis. So, you know, that can be 50-50, could be 60-40. Any of the revenue they make, they share with us, but there's no license fee up front. And that's sort of how traditionally it worked for us. So it's really just, you kind of got to change your mindset a little bit, how you approach these deals and how you approach your business models. And I think just any disruption can be a bit scary, you know? You want to be sort of early enough to be able to be part of the disruption and not be disrupted by it too much. And that's usually where that comes from, but it's just a flip side. You know, it's scary on the one hand, but there's a lot of opportunity on the other hand, so it's just kind of managing those two sides of it.
AI.
Yeah, oh my God, yeah, AI.
That's a different panel, the AI panel, I think. I always try to see the opportunity side. I totally agree with you. This room has to be very smart about the business models. So a license fee is one thing, but even the structure around the license fee is one thing. If you're going to go self-publish, so like a YouTube or a Facebook or whatever you're going to do, that's also a different thing, because how are you getting paid when you get millions of views? Fast channels, it's an ad share. Could be a different model. The reality I always, when I talk to our producers, the reality is being aware of all these opportunities is necessary. It's a necessary part of being a content creator, because it's just part of your future. If you're planning on being a company versus kind of a project, like a writer, so if you have aspirations to have a slate and run a team and have multiple projects and kind of grow a business, understanding the unfortunate reality is all of this tech changes and all the business model changes is your domain, in addition to writing and being creative. You have to be aware, because that's how you're going to grow your company and be paid. So, so some of you are on fast channels. I know Blue Ant and CBC for sure. What are you doing on those? Why don't you go, Zach? What are you doing on fast, and is it working? How do you tell success?
The one that I would be closest to is a channel called CBC Comedy that hasn't launched yet, but that will be on the scripted side of things, our first foray into fast. We do have a fast channel called CBC News Explore that I won't speak to quite as much, just because it's a totally separate beast. But the CBC Comedy Fast channel will launch at some point this fall. There's no date set yet. it follows the same model that we're talking about here. It's not reinventing the wheel, but the benefit that we have there is just hundreds and hundreds of hours of comedy content, and that's previous seasons of, Son of a Critch and, Schitt's Creek and Kim's Convenience and Working Moms and all of these shows. I list them all. I don't know exactly what the rights are of all of them, but these are the shows that are in our catalog. And then tons of stand-up comedy. So hundreds and hundreds of hours, and it's just like what a fun fast channel that would be. So that's coming soon. Interesting opportunity for some of our Gem originals where, it's, again, we have these shows under license, and it's, is there a way to fit that in? The channel is going to fit a pretty predictable sort of half-hour grid, so it's not just going to be like, oh, the show's starting at 2:07 p.m. or so. It will be a fairly streamlined experience that way. But there will probably be gaps in the programming that aren't filled by the ad load, and then it's like, oh, like maybe we can get an episode of a Gem original in there. So these are the ways we can think, and it really is. I'd say for now, it's not like we have an original programming strategy for Comedy Fast. That's like, how can we do shows only for that? But it is thinking about how to just create an entertaining comedy stream 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's really exciting. So it's there will be more coming soon in terms of when it's coming, but that's happening now.
Interesting. That's a really important note, which is that you're now back to that ad load.
Yeah.
And what I've loved about the rise of VOD, it gave us all this ability to make an episode as long as it needed to be, and all the episode times have been changing across the same show, and now fast channels have brought back this linear vibe where you got to plan for ad load, and so that is something for you guys to think about, which is, 318s add up to like a 40-something, which maybe that's the ad load. So again, that's something to consider. And you do consider like 211s can be a 22, right? This is not like you'll play back-to-back episodes to fill traditional,
Yeah, certainly. I think, we'll probably start with the existing 22s just because there are so many. We have stand-up series, like there's a series called New Wave of Stand-Up. Those are quarter hours. So yeah, it still can be modular, but I think it starts with, all right, let's plug in these half-hour spaces, because we're mostly dealing in half-hour comedy. There are, things like the JFL galas, those are longer. So it is just like fairly traditionally filling out a programming block for the course of a day. But again, looking at like, are there opportunities to do other things in here that could be really fun? And I don't know, I'm excited about it. So it'll launch this fall.
Do you have anything to add, Lucas? Because you also have fast channels in market.
Sure. I can sort of echo what Zach just said a little bit in terms of you look at your catalog of content you already have and then see how could that be turned into fast channels, and that's very much what Blue Ant did as well. Our strengths historically have been in the factual space, so a lot of those channels will be factual. Like I said before, there might be paranormal, there might be sort of lifestyle renovation kind of stuff. There's we own Love Nature, which is a natural history brand. So in the US, we have a Love Nature Fast channel, which will usually show some of the slightly older but still relevant Love Nature content. There's plans for a pets channel that's just focused on cute animal content. That's the kind of stuff that has success for us.
But are you commissioning specifically for these fast channels as well as going into back catalogue? So because I guess for the audience, I'm wondering what the opportunities for they all exist within these channels.
Similar to also what Zach said, I think we're not totally there yet, where we would say we commission just for the fast channels. Luckily for Blue Ant, and I'm assuming for CBC as well, there's sort of some synergies that you can tap into, where we have some pay TV channels that do commission, and our fast channels are largely aligned with the programming strategies of those pay TV channels. So we have started to take fast into account when we commission for those pay TV channels, especially in terms of, it might be a Canadian commission, but there's an ambition to have fast rolled out more around the world, not just in Canada. So it's an opportunity to not just think about our Canadian audiences, but also think about who could we reach via fast in the UK with this. And that might affect the commissioning strategy there, but it will still take a bit of time to say we're only commissioning for the fast channel. I think we still need to build an audience and have that sort of revenue that justifies that.
And just specific to you, Lucas, do you, in your role, distribute other people's content. So are the people in this room potentially could leverage you as a distributor to get onto other channels that aren't even Blue Ants? Is that?
Yeah, so I was actually going to touch on that. So I work in the distribution team. I work closely with our fast channels guys, so I know a little bit about what they do. But so I acquire the content, and then I have people in my team who go out and sell it. And they have relationships with a lot of fast channels that are not Blue Ant owned, that are not even Canadian. You know, they might be in the US, they might be in the UK, or they might be truly global. So absolutely, you know, that's sort of what I meant at the beginning. If a producer pitches us a show that was made maybe a few years ago, before Fast, we might have sort of said, I don't think there's a home for this. You know, people are looking for new stuff, they're looking for premieres, that sort of thing. But now that Fast is a reality, if we're able to build sort of a big volume package that we can offer for, you know, fast channel providers all around the world, all of a sudden, even older content or stuff that might not be, you know, completely premium becomes relevant. So I'm totally happy to talk about, you know, any content you have in your pipeline and see if it's a fit for any of our global buyer base.
So there's different business models we talked about. I kind of have them ranked in my head, like the first thing I want is a license fee because I want that money up front. I want you to take the risk and commit to me. Sometimes that also could be a distribution advance. I want that to come to me. The next row I go down is like, okay, I'm gonna get a distributor, and they're taking the risk with me a little bit, but you got to be smart about the expenses. So they're going to take a commission, but also they are providing some value. So there's thing in there, and then there's like the rev share part, and I keep going down. I'm like, okay, if I'm in rev share, I'm feeling more nervous about my return on my investment, and how am I actually going to get paid? And I've also seen pay to play. There's some platforms that have come out that are like, you pay me to go on my platform, plus we'll rev share, and I always advise against those. I'm like, do not pay someone to distribute your content. Like, you might as well just go to a big platform. Do you guys have, so I've listed sort of these models that I've seen, and I've ranked them. Does that resonate with you? What have you seen that these guys should be aware of in terms of business models and your opinions on them? You know, do you rank them similarly? Like, go for
absolutely. I live in the cozy world of license fee, distribution, advance. So all of the other models, like, and even as a creator, scare the hell out of me. Like, if I think about rev share, not to discount it, and maybe this is my own misunderstandings of rev share or pay-per-view, I just don't know, as an emerging creator, how you step into a space where you're expected to carry that load. So I think all sympathy to everybody sort of stepping out with all of these new business models, because it doesn't feel like the safe cocoon I can provide, say, as a commissioner, where I'm saying, here's your reasonable, like quite substantial license fee. And on my short form site, the finance plan is pretty much there, except for a bit of state agency funding, which we actively pursue and bring in anyway. So the only problem we've got is kind of looking at how do we increase our budgets, and maybe that's into looking into co-productions or other investors coming into our finance plan. So I don't know. I'm just expressing some sympathy. It's very scary out there. Very different kind of industry that if I look at when I stepped into the industry as a creative, only 1 year ago, 20 years ago, like it was a much cozier sort of, it seemed a much more linear path to having some money in your pocket to provide content. So I don't know.
Yeah. I like the range of opportunity. I rank them that way for a reason, but they're on the table. But when I get to the pay to play, I'm like, no, do not pay someone. Don't pay someone to get the audience. That can't be your goal. You have to find your audience a different way. And there's
Does anyone have that experience in the audience? Pay to play?
Not me personally, but the guy that I work with.
And that went...
He has not gotten his money back yet. I think he's still a few $1,000s shy of getting his money back, and that was a couple of years ago. I was just an actor in his thing, but still, I've watched it beginning, middle, and end.
It's so exploitative, I'm sorry. Like, that is just capitalising on opportunity that is so, like, is people so desperately want in this industry. Like, that really gets me angry, John.
I'm sorry to bring
Sorry,
it
you
up,
didn't expect
Lonnie.
that. I've really got, anyway, back to call. I'm not the moderator. I'm sorry, John.
You're doing a fine job moderating. It's no problem. Well, let's pivot off the business models a bit. It's actually going to splice. It's going to come back in because it's just the nature of the discussion. But another trend I saw, sort of beyond the fast channels and also this very niche platform, which I think are positives because it's more opportunity as much as it's kind of still we're all learning and experimenting. I do think that experimentation is a good idea. But another trend that I thought was a positive for producers in the room, just last month Nielsen reported less than 20% of titles on subscription were exclusive. These are probably US stats, and less than 15% of titles on traditional linear TV were exclusive. And that's very different than it was a couple of years ago. People were really trying to get exclusivity and hold on to that if they're not commissioning and they're acquiring. And so that's a decrease in exclusivity to platforms as a requirement, which I think is a positive. And is that so I'm asking this group, is that a trend you're seeing? And is that and why is that? And what do you think that means for these producers?
Yeah, I have some thoughts on that. So I'm seeing that from a Bell Media perspective as a trend. I think when I evaluate my slate and what's important, I really look at the key KPI, like our key performance indicator, as reach. So exclusivity is, we're flexible in terms of that distribution. And again, the intention is really to get producers' projects as far and wide and as many eyeballs on that as possible. So that's my take on that. And I think Bell Media is really invested in leveraging our channels and our platforms to play around with to really get your project seen. As an example, we had a project recently that finally went out into the world. Its initial home was on our channel CTV Life. It's a design reno show, and we weren't really seeing as much traction as it is a linear broadcast channel as we were really hoping for. The show does speak for a younger demo, and obviously we're seeing that more and more people are consuming online. That's not a secret. So, you know, we played around with that, and our goal was to get more eyeballs on it. And so we ended up distributing that on ctv.ca and also exploring other distribution channels outside of our own ecosystem. So, yep, we're seeing that for sure. And we're open and flexible with, different modeling of exclusivity.
I find that really interesting, and just knowing what I know of streaming platforms and Bell Media and other companies in the history is very much like there was a really movement towards we need to own the whole thing exclusively, and so this trend to be less about exclusivity and just more about investing in you're confident in your platforms, which allows the producers to go make other deals around the world, et cetera. There was a time where a decade ago or more, where I know, for example, CBC was even trying to take online rights like YouTube, et cetera, and those days are over. And it's such a great movement, I think, for the regionalized supporters of these people's content to take a less exclusive approach. Do you see that, Lucas?
Yeah, definitely.
You would sell to more than one platform, so you could actually see the different ways it's breaking out.
Yeah. So obviously, a lot of what we do depends on rights and territories and sort of being able to exploit not just with one buyer, but like to go around the world and find homes for a show. So there's definitely a bubble that burst in a sense where the big streamers are more flexible as well, including Crave, but also Netflix and Amazon, to sort of windowing opportunities. And I think it obviously comes down to budgets. Like if you want to have the whole world and all the rights, that's going to be very expensive. And as we all know, all the big streamers spent like crazy over the last decade or so. And I think that just kind of came to a natural end where it's not really realistic anymore. And that definitely opens up a lot of doors for us to kind of, I touched on that yesterday a little bit, where, a show might be commissioned out of a country which, fair enough, will be exclusive. CBC might want exclusive rights in Canada, but they don't need rights in Germany. So we can take that show there and hopefully find a home for it there. And the same now goes for Netflix or Amazon, where they might have local commissioners and might commission a show only for Canada or only for maybe the English-speaking world, and the rest will be available. So there's definitely a lot more flexibility.
That's really good. Do you see they'll take a license fee over here, but they'll leave the producer open to sell it as a rev share somewhere else? So it's also business model exclusivity? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. It's quite common for a whole region to be carved out, but sometimes, depending on who the commissioner is, they might only take the rights that are relevant to them. So usually maybe with a holdback. So let's say it's an SVOD platform, they might commission something, they want it exclusively on SVOD in perpetuity or for 25 years, and then they have a holdback against traditional television for a year, 2 years, 3 years. So yeah, it's just about sort of creativity in that sense as well. But there's usually some sort of holdback involved.
Okay, so something to pay attention to is there is a trend towards less exclusivity, which means when you guys are talking to platforms, think about like push back on some of the exclusivity they might just be trying to put on the table, thinking that you're new and et cetera. So I'm going to pivot really kind of specifically into short form content a bit. One of the greatest strengths of short form content is the uniqueness of it. It is the fact that it really has this incredible diverse set of themes and creators and et cetera, and it's one of my favorite parts of it. Do you find that these new platforms are creating more opportunities for those unique stories? I think we touched on it a little bit. It feels like an obvious answer, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on why that is, and is there something that the short form producers, and they're creating content for likely a very unique audience as well, which is one of its strengths. And is that something that you guys are noticing and excited about? I'll start with you, Zach.
Yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, and I did touch on it a little bit in my sort of earlier remarks too. I think the short answer is yes, absolutely. I think, again, at its best, I think you don't even notice that it's short form. I think it's just, it belongs on the platform that it happens to be on. And that's our ambition on the GEM side. You know, I think you don't want it to feel like, oh, this is something else that has somehow made its way into this streaming service. I think you want it to feel seamless. You want to feel like I just finished watching, Murdoch, or I just finished watching, again, Schitt's Creek, and here's something else that's right up my alley, and it was very well programmed, and I don't even notice that they're like 15, 20-minute episodes, I don't know, but I know that it's something I'm going to enjoy, and that's part of our ambition as programmers, is to just make sure it feels like something that represents CBC well, and something that will attract our audience to the best of our understanding of what our audience wants. And like anything, sometimes that works beautifully and sometimes it doesn't quite. And it's like, okay, this maybe wasn't for this audience and maybe it isn't the right place for it, but that's kind of the game. And I think we're very lucky, very privileged at a place like CBC where you have this streaming service that has tons of original content that's been commissioned over the years on comedy and drama and factual and documentary and so on, feature film. And then you have an amazing library of international acquisitions. And then you have GEM originals that again, the goal there is to find a way to leverage the audiences that are already coming in and keep them there and make sure that it's always top of mind, that it's like, this is a fun streaming service for me. There's always something that I'm going to discover. In the absence of all of those other things, it becomes a much bigger challenge where it's like, okay, now these shows are in a vacuum. So I think having that opportunity of a streaming service that's a major priority for a major public broadcaster, and then being able to play in that playground, yeah, I mean, that's the longer answer, but all of which to say it's
a good long answer.
It's all great.
I know producers said that the Independent Production Fund loves being in this space almost for the reason that it's not TV. Like, we have a 20-minute max per episode cap specifically so that all the big TV shows don't come to us for finance completion. We want to put what money we do have into a new idea and a new creator. And so the fact that it's kind of not that traditional TV really excites us. I also know our producers love that adjacency. That when they are adjacent to a Schitt's Creek, it feels like now we're mixing in the same waters, and it's worthy of it because these are amazing productions, et cetera. But they just had to take a different path. Do you have any stats that say that they connect? Like the audience here is leading to the next audience? And I loved your thoughts too after Zach, Alyssa.
Yeah, I think the best stat that we have on that is that people that watch short form content on CBC GEM have twice as many video views as other people that watch CBC GEM. So that's one big stat, but ultimately we just know that they're super viewers. They're people that love Gem, can't get enough, and that the short form series are helping to give them more to watch, and again, keeping them in the service for longer, and hopefully helping them build relationships with creators and perspectives and ideas and cultures and worlds that would have otherwise potentially passed them by. Or maybe some of these shows are the very reason that they came in, because they speak to them so directly, which is best case scenario. So yeah, I mean, I think our understanding of the people that do view Gem originals, and particularly like the shorter format Gem originals, are that they love Gem, and this is yet another way that they engage with it. If that answers the
it does.
question.
Yeah. So talking about your platform, Saloni and Alyssa, is it similar? I think Alyssa, you talked about mining the IP, but I'm curious about short form platform content on that platform, if that exists.
Yeah, I think about if we were just simply linear and we didn't have our digital channels, our SBS on demand, we wouldn't be working in the short form space. And then I think about the missed opportunities for all of the creators, because it's a real talent incubator for us, and it is an actively, we talk a lot, and particularly when we're working with marginalised, underrepresented communities, how do we bring people into the industry, but what does sustainability look like? So working in short form for a broadcaster like SBS, and that only exists, we can only be a little more format agnostic in that way, because we have our digital channels. Like if we didn't have digital, we wouldn't be doing it, and we wouldn't be able to create that pipeline that looks like going from short form and keeping people in careers, building opportunities, and actively doing it, not just expecting that somehow after they make this series, they'll find the next opportunity elsewhere. We are actively trying to work out what that opportunity within the SBS family looks like, or actively working with other broadcasters or other producers, pitching our slate out, pitching people out, pitching our slate at markets to distributors to get the word out there about these creatives. And none of that would exist if we were simply linear. So, that as a commissioner, that's what excites me about the potential of new platforms and new technology, is access into industry that is so hard to find when you don't come from, or you can come from more systemic barriers than maybe what film school looks like, or you come in, you're kind of born into the industry, or whatever it is, whatever privilege looks like. For those who don't have it, it opens up so many opportunities.
I mean, I'll repeat it, but we're actively playing in the space of really paying attention to new content and platform trends. And I mean, again, it's 45% of my job, where I'm actively on these platforms seeking for new content, new format ideas, and talent. Been doing that with the company for, since 2015, and we're deeply invested in that. So, some advice that I have for producers is, as much as you can share your content and sort of educate yourselves and be immersed in these platforms is critical to your success. And each of these platforms, I mean, again, sort of get to know them, really absorb like what's working, and experiment with your content on there. I'm seeing a lot of trends in the industry where people are creating, and a lot of success in creating bespoke content for the likes of like TikTok. I'm seeing a new trend of scripted content emerging in that space. There's a particular company, they position themselves as sort of a new age media company, where they're specifically creating scripted series for TikTok. They're called Mad Realities, and one format that's really resonated with me that I've seen some opportunity to expand into long form is called Keep the Meter Running. It's sort of like a Cash Cab 2.0. And so again, this company has really sort of just owned that space and owned that lane across the digital landscape. And Bell Media certainly is really paying attention to that and seeing how that works for considering for our long form content models.
So you're looking on other platforms to find that stuff to bring into your long-form pipeline. Got it. Makes sense. I think it is a trend. Is there any other companies in the room doing that, creating content, putting on TikTok, scripted? Yeah, Michelle. Yeah, fantastic. So I think there are others. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I think there are. This is becoming a growing trend. We should talk a little bit about creating scripted for TikTok. Maybe we'll just save that just a little bit at the end. Maybe we'll ask some questions. But when you guys think of so for Zach and Luani, when you're shepherding a project through to be on your channel, do you think about also the other like off your platform, and what do you think of success looks like? So you got to bring it into your universe, but also are you helping, or what are the pitfalls you see of them? They also need to get elsewhere in the world to complete financing, to get paid, to all of those things. So how do you think about platforms beyond your own when you're shepherding projects through your own ecosystem?
Should I start?
Sure, twin.
Okay.
We're going to say the same thing. You watch.
I mean, there was stuff you said earlier that I could have just said, like that.
I heard
said
you
it
going,
more beautifully than I would have. But,
Zawani? Or
let's do it.
Zawani.
Yeah, I mean, it's yes and no. We're mindful of it, that so much of what we do, and really, Luani spoke to this, again, very, very effectively and eloquently earlier, just about the idea of supporting careers for people that maybe aren't having those opportunities on the quote-unquote broadcast side or elsewhere within our organization, and but have a ton of talent and have an interesting story to tell, and are maybe either talented on either side of the camera. Just people on across the board that we just want to support, we want to cultivate, and we want to help bring their story to the screen, to the audience that we already have, the national audience, and that we think will resonate with people that are already in there watching all these other shows. So I think first and foremost, it's how do we make this the most successful production that we can, knowing what its sort of end game is, which is to be a CBC Gem original series alongside all of those other series, and that's sort of part one. But in doing so, and some production companies that we work with have a ton of experience. Most have somewhere in the middle, and then some have very, very little. And I think they're very lucky at CBC to have our business and rights team to work with, who are very hands-on and very deliberate in the way that they give advice and help and advise and guide, and again, help build those careers and build capacity really among, in this case, we're talking about the sort of production companies that are making it, but setting them up for success so that, when they get to a point where, okay, now the show's out and it's on Gem and it's doing well and that's great, inevitably the conversation is, where do we go from here? Is it other platforms? Is it, what does season 2 look like, of course, is a natural question. On Gem, we happen to not do a ton of season 2 Gem originals. We do a lot of, sort of one season and then a conversation about what makes sense as a next step. We do occasionally do them, and that's generally, a reaction to, like, this show did exceptionally well, and let's try again. And sometimes they do perform. Often, we struggle to sort of see those same numbers on a subsequent season that we do on a season 1. So us doing a season 2 is really a sign that it's like, okay, this is in an exceptional place, and we want to continue going down this road. But yeah, often the question is other platforms or other platforms within CBC, and what does that look like? And it could go a number of different ways. I mean, one thing that happens often is, okay, you had a hit Gem original series. We'd like to introduce you to our drama development team now. And we think there's a conversation to be had here for, do you want to think about developing this as a 1-hour drama with CBC? Same, you could swap drama for comedy. That happens all the time too. And then it's a pitch meeting. Here's what we had the successful first season. It's currently on Gem. What could that look? What is the CBC comedy development team looking for? And can we pitch a version of that is that much bigger, because it would be longer format, and that would work for more of a primetime audience? And sometimes that's a really easy conversation because the Gem version was already almost there. Sometimes it's a bit more of a leap where it's like, okay, the Gem series was very narrow, a very specific thing. It's harder to envision what this could be in a longer format. And then it could become, well, we know that you can get it done. We know that this is a very talented team. And then maybe it's a question of like, well, what else do you want to do? Because you've proven that, you can deliver at this high level, engage an audience. You've got a really interesting voice that you've already sort of demonstrated with the show. What does that look like now? And maybe let's develop something else entirely. Do you have any other ideas? So it's very fluid. It's very conversational. But it is sort of step one, thinking about let's make the show as good as it can be on Gem right now. And then beyond that, sustaining a relationship both on the business and rights side and on the programming side of like, all right, well, like, let's keep working together. How do we keep this relationship going? What does that look like?
Yeah, that's an important message, we think of the same thing when we invest in projects. We're actually investing in projects and people. And it sounds like you're feeling that same approach, which is that first project that does XYZ, give you enough to think these people might be, what else do you have and what's the next step with them? I like that a lot, yeah. So it's, okay, Loanie, and same?
I'll just add
Twinsy?
projects, people, but also cultural impact. And, you know, like, so if you're a broadcaster like SBS, and I would just argue anyone in commissioning should be thinking about this, but what is the cultural value of a project? And that comes down to how we measure success, you know, for... obviously, views matter, return on investment matters, but more important to us as the multicultural, multilingual Indigenous broadcaster of Australia is to have an impact on and shift perspectives in our culture. So that to me holds real currency when I think about how do I measure success of our shows. And often we'll work with creators who want all of that audience data, and I'm happy to talk about it. But the bigger conversation is, look at all of the press. Like, you know, we made a series called Latecomers about 2 people with disability, and the amount of press and the conversation in industry, in press, in pop culture, it became such a kind of movement in Australia and such a landmark series, and to your point, was being discussed as being a great piece of content, not that it was a 6 by 10 minute series. And so to me, those measures of success, which are harder to measure, and I wish we had better ways to measure cultural impact, because that, to me, if you can achieve that and you can make a dent and shift perspectives, change hearts, shift minds, that feels like real success on a project. So I hold that at the highest value when I'm commissioning.
Latecomers is a great example. Because I have you both, I don't know if you could speak to how it ended up on, it was commissioned by Luani, shepherded through on SBS, and then somehow ended up on CBC, and I don't know how that happened. You guys, like, it's a great example of a project crossing international borders and getting on some major platforms.
Yeah, so the series is about 2 people with disability whose care workers hook up at a bar, and they then go into their own exploration of love and sex and friendship, and it's super sexy, and it kind of turns up the dial on what disability representation looks like on our screens, because it's, I think someone was speaking to it yesterday in a panel, and one of the creators, Emma Myers of Latecomers, speaks it really eloquently when she was like, I just wanted to make a series where people with disability were also drinking cocktails and not just wearing their identity as story. And I was like, yes, that's exactly the appeal of this series. So it's a fantastic series, and we had looked at scheduling it for International Day of Disability. Because of all the press, because the star of the series was gathering momentum in her own advocacy work and winning all sorts of awards, left, right and centre, publishing books, setting up her own media company, just kind of like, it's like exploded into the industry. I think it was through an interview that she did on Latecomers that CBC Gem heard about it, asked producers to see it, and we went out day and date on International Day of Disability. And it was such... I gotta get so emotional. It was such a... you know, like as a mama bear, like I think of myself as a mama bear of projects, it was such a great moment to know that, like, these shows that we thought we were making for this audience and for these people to be seen could spread globally, and that is like such a fantastic achievement for a show like Latecomers. I encourage you all to see it, and that's exactly, like, as a commissioner, that is everything when you're telling really specific and local stories, and telling them in the right way. Like, 2 of the creators are people with disability, and that team was built in the most inclusive, supportive, nurturing way, and in the right ways, and our practices were always evolving in that work, and actively evolving. We were putting more money in when we realised we didn't have enough money to make reasonable adjustments on set for the cast with disability. So we kind of poured everything into doing that series the right way and telling a really great story. And you get that kind of global recognition. And it was the only Australian series that went to Series Mania. So that to me is like, I don't know, I think I could walk away from commissioning with that under my belt and feel super proud.
To be honest, I don't have a ton to add from the CBC side because it didn't actually sort of come through CBC scripted Gem Originals. It was a deal done through our acquisitions team. So just, again, that's more of a organizational thing. And yet, again, through meeting over the past few days, it's like what we're doing independently aligns, so handily. And it was really interesting hearing about the backstory here. And perhaps there are ways, that we could work more earlier, just in the sort of building on the conversation about partnerships. They're not always the easiest thing to do, but a lot of the things that you're speaking to, and particularly related to latecomers, align with the sort of the programming mandate that we have, which is why it's on Gem. But as far as the sort of inside story, I don't have it. Other than obviously our.
I think what you're saying here is you're going to start putting money into our show.
That's what it sounds like.
Wheeling and dealing.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like there's
I'm
connections here, and I'm interested.
No,
what I did hear actually from that story was that it kind of entered the ether. It kind of entered the zeitgeist a little bit, and this global community that exists because of TikTok and online connection, et cetera, which you hear Alyssa saying that's where they're actually looking, and it's actually where CBC found it. So I know in that case it was earned media, which is an important part. It's free marketing, that earned media. So I love that we work in this unique space. I think that is actually an important avenue for getting heard and known and seen, is that these breaking barriers are actually sometimes newsworthy, and you're watching for those things.
And I just want to keep touching on the subject of creating storytelling that has cultural impact, because we are dealing with, as creators and business professionals in this industry, we're dealing with so much competition in the landscape that is obviously this whole new age of trying to get consumers' attention and eyeballs on your projects. And it's just so critical to be thinking about that when you're approaching your storytelling and your creative. There's so much free content out there, highly consumable, and these platforms obviously are, so savvy in their technology to really drive algorithms to continue to keep, consumers on their platforms. So I just think, that is really important to us as to when we're evaluating our projects.
Yeah, it's so key to the distinctiveness of a project, right? Like, as people who get pitched to, it's that I can't even say it. Specificity of voice that's so key to distinctiveness in a project.
Definitely, and just to add to that, this is a great example how a project that might have started as a local story or as to amplify a local voice can actually have, international resonance and kind of generate interest internationally. So that's definitely something that we'd always be looking to tap into too.
And yesterday, the panel for the series "You're My Hero," also the creator and lead Super Palsy, was an amazing event. So it's a difficult transition for people to have those series made, and when you're leading with those, so it's going to happen more frequently. Or I'm optimistic and hopeful that it will. So pivoting just a little bit to when you're approaching. I'm okay. I got it. It's nice. Thank you very much, Leah. I appreciate it. Nobody saw that. She is so smooth. Thank you. When we are talking about approaching platforms, so this was a conversation about shepherding through a project. But if you've got a project and it's done, it doesn't have a home yet locally, etc. I'm curious. Maybe Lucas, you could start. What are the mistakes? So we learn from mistakes, but what are mistakes people do when they're trying to pitch or approach a platform? What are the pieces that they need to bring to make sure that they're making that connection? I'm curious, because everyone has a pitch, but maybe there's mistakes people are making when they're trying to sell their project.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff.
A lot of mistakes?
Not a lot of
mistakes?
Not necessarily mistakes, but just a lot to think about, And I know everyone thinks very hard about the stuff they make, and it's very easy to just forget a couple details. So I think it probably, at least from my perspective, it starts at very basic things like the materials that you can provide. We touched on that yesterday a little bit. Something like a sizzle or a trailer, 60 to 90 minutes, 60 to 90 seconds, that sort of very distinctly captures the essence of what you're trying to sell or to pitch to people.
Can I ask a question very specific on that? Because we fund proof of concept, we're very specific, calling them proof of concepts versus trailers, but some people do make a trailer, and it's interesting because a trailer officially is a cut down of a finished product. So you've finished or close to finish a product and you made a trailer out of it for marketing. So some people, but ours is a proof of concept before you've shot to prove that you've got some things. So I just want to be clear, is it a trailer or is it a scene or is it a proof of concept? Like, are you trying to show one scene that shows the tone of voice or the special effects and how they look?
It's a good point, and I think, like you said, it really depends on the stage that your production is at. Obviously, if you haven't shot it yet, you can't really make a trailer. In that case, at least for our purposes, a sizzle would be great. You know, it doesn't even need to be footage from the actual show, just sort of, you know, you could use stock, just something to kind of get the vibe across of what you're doing. I think if you do have a finished show, a trailer would be great.
Yeah, so you want a trailer,
yeah,
like tease me
yeah,
with
not just
music
a scene,
track.
but,
And
yeah, especially if you're talking multiple episodes, it'd be great to kind of see, you know, the journey that the viewer would take across the season. In addition to something like a sizzle or a trailer, I always appreciate a distinct treatment. You know, sometimes we'll get a whole Bible from a producer, which is really great to dive in and understand what the project is about, but once we get to pitching to broadcasters, they might not have the time to read 30 pages or really dive into every single character of your show. So if there's a way for you to summarize what your show is about on a 1 or 2 pager, together with a sizzle, that's a really strong package that we can, you know, submit to people. And yeah, I think those are the very basic mistakes that I sometimes see, where those materials might not be up to snuff or might not even exist, and then it can, you know, that takes money and it costs extra time to create those materials. So that's definitely the first thing that I think of.
so something to think about while you're in production is to make creating those materials part of that while your cash flow is flowing, I suppose. I wanted to ask about target audience. So what's interesting is inside the CBC universe, that example you gave, Zach, that transition you make from the project to the next season or to the creators to the next project, you have the benefit of audience data. If they're going to a platform, should they be bringing what they know about their audience data? Our projects all create a proof of concept, get online to prove there's an audience, a target audience, et cetera. Yeah, go ahead, Alyssa. Yeah, I'm curious how important that audience data, you want it, or do you want, yeah.
I was actually just going to speak more about like really deeply understanding what audience your project is speaking to and pitching that in meetings to broadcasters and potential partners. Like really understanding on that and sharing that messaging is key. So the data portion, it hasn't really been super
You're asking for target audience.
I want to
presume target audience for the material.
Exactly. Like, why is this show, like, who is this relevant to, and why is this going to be meaningful to that particular audience? So having a vision of that.
If they've done a trailer, a proof of concept or something online, and they've pulled some audience data, and sometimes I've seen it for sure where I've done it, you have some assumption about your audience, you do some testing, and you realize your audience is actually slightly different than you expected, and you follow the audience lead. That audience data is really valuable potentially. So is that so you want target audience? Do the platforms, do you think, want actual audience data, or is that irrelevant? They actually just need you to bring the idea, like Alyssa's saying, and your target.
It's an interesting question. I think in my experience, they don't dive as much into the specific data as kind of what you just said. I mean, I think it can help if you, and I don't have too many examples that I can pull from, but just instinctively, what you just described, if you had a trailer that blew up on YouTube and you saw that, I don't know, 70% of your audience came from Latin America, that is definitely useful information. It might be more useful to us as a distributor to know which buyers to target, and then those buyers might not dive too deep into that data. But regardless of who's looking at the data, I think at some point it will be useful. But I kind of want to echo what you were saying. Like it's kind of more important to know what's your voice and what kind of genre / audience are you going for. and think about it in fairly broad terms. At least for us as an international distributor, we don't really go too deep. We want to understand, okay, is this, are we targeting 16 to 30-year-olds, or are we targeting 31 to 60-year-olds, maybe? And we want to know, this is an outdated term, but some broadcasters will still call something female or male skewing, and I think there's probably a separate discussion to be had about whether that's still relevant or not. But so think about it fairly broad. Think about which genre does this fit in, and this might be different for you guys, but for us it's actually, is this a paranormal show? Is this a comedy show? Is this a drama? And sometimes producers, rightfully so, will be looking to disrupt or to be subversive. And with international distribution, that can sometimes actually be a challenge, because obviously if you're speaking to everyone in the world, the project needs to be fairly broad and have a fairly broad appeal. So it's just sort of really understanding what are you actually making and who's the target audience, but think about it in broad terms, at least from our perspective.
Just one more thing, I'd say, really zooming out. I mean, it doesn't have to get too specific on gender basis, but almost like what specific communities is this project speaking to? And again, when I'm sort of doing research and really deeply studying these platforms, there is an abundance of deeply invested niche communities and very broad strokes communities that can be explored and create fandom. I think that's something that...
Such good advice. I'm going to take that into when I talk about this.
Good.
I'll just add very quickly, because I agree with all of that. It's not dissimilar to what I'd be looking for in terms... I don't need data. I just want to know if you know your audience, but also if there's potential to find that audience within our suite of channels, and our digital channels is the other consideration. But just going on to how to pitch, we have... as part of one of our access initiatives, we created a pitch deck guide. So that is a really useful development tool. It's called the SBS Pitch Deck Guide. It's free to download, and it asks a number of questions. It'll ask questions around clarity of genre. It'll talk about character. It'll talk about series summary. So it kind of delivers all of the key elements on what you need to put into a pitch deck guide. And then it's kind of on you to kind of fuck with the rules a bit and, mess with the rules, politely mess with the rules. No, impolitely mess with the rules a bit and deliver your voice within your pitch. But it is such I cannot tell you how useful it is as a commissioner when I have I'm not quite sure what's not working about a pitch. I'll very often go back to that pitch deck guide and go, that's the key question that they're not answering or delivering on. So as a development tool in understanding when you're ready to pitch a project, this is very specifically for scripted, when you're ready to pitch a project, have a look at that document. It's really, really useful.
So those pieces might be relevant to a finished product trying to go to a platform, and make sure you have those questions answered.
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
Because that's what we're looking for, is that you know your story. So if we like your story, then the next question we're asking as commissioners is, are you going to be able to deliver? Is this the team to deliver? And very often that rests in our interrogation of your project down to story. Do you know your story? If you can answer all of the questions within that pitch deck guide, in a meeting, then you probably know your story well enough to be able for us to trust you that you can deliver on that project.
Got it. So we're going to, we got 25 minutes left. I'm going to pivot to questions in a second. So start thinking about getting Warner walking around in circles, hopefully. Getting his steps in. I need to get... So think about that. I did want to just comment on one thing. So on the Lucas, you talked about sort of the broadness, it's important to be broad, but then also you guys talk about knowing your community, and those sound counterintuitive. So I'm servicing niche, I know my audience and I know my community, but also to sell it, I need to be really broad. And so there is a way to connect those dots, right? So within, an example off the top of my head is Lauren Korber in the room. So How to Buy a Baby is something we funded a couple years ago. It's very niche in the sense that it's about couples experiencing infertility and the dramedy of their process to try to have a baby, and it's How to Buy a Baby. But it was successful around the world because that community is actually global. It is everywhere in every city, and there is a niche audience all around the world for this. It got picked up by Warner Brothers to be a full-length series in Europe because it had that mix. So you're targeting your audience, you're serving that audience, and I think you are going deep on your community, but also think of how it relates to humanity. And
Exactly.
a lot of these stories are actually more human and broad than you think. They have a broader appeal.
Yeah, some of those are like universal themes that, can be touched on in different formats.
Yeah, so, and there is a smart way to, your niche, but you present yourself as relatable is an important part of your process for success.
I'll jump in on this quickly, and that's one of the rare series that did get a second season on CBC Gem because season 1 did so well. And yeah, I mean, not to in any way contradict what you're saying, which I completely agree with, John, but like, it also, when that show was pitched to us, and I don't remember the stats off the top of my head, it was quite a while ago now, but while it feels like a niche issue, what I think what Lauren and Wendy Littner did very well was say, like, you think this is a small group of people that's struggling with this, but here are the numbers, and they're a lot bigger than you think, and this touches a lot more lives than you might think, and it's something people don't talk about as much because it can be quite private. So I think that resonated in a very strong way. That's like, it feels narrow and specific, but it's actually kind of sneakily something that's on a lot of people's minds. And I think they delivered that pitch very well. And then also Wendy Littner had a very strong following. I think it was really Instagram at the time, where she was a trusted voice, a voice of authority on that subject. And that was something else that gave us that sort of extra, like, oh, this is the person who can, in this show, in this context, a comedic writer who has firsthand experience here can speak with a voice of authority and say, let's laugh together about this thing that we struggle with, and did obviously an exceptional job with it.
They checked all the boxes. The authentic voice was right there with Wendy, et cetera.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just wanted to add, I think that's totally right. You can find pieces that speak to local communities that then actually you realize you got global communities that are just as interested in that. But also, while I do say that for international distribution, broad is usually better, it might just be that you're making something that's very near and dear to your heart, and it's very relevant locally, and maybe it doesn't translate internationally, and that can be fine too. That might not be the right project for an international distributor, but nothing wrong with finding success where you're from and amplifying the voices that you want to amplify. So when I say broad, it doesn't mean compromise your vision or compromise what you're trying to do. It's just kind of understand where you sit and what you want to do with this. Maybe you don't want to go international. Maybe you want it to be a national, local story. That's totally fine.
Questions? Does anyone have questions for this panel? Yeah, go ahead. Werner, right up front. Love it. Right here.
Hi. So I have a very specific question about money. My creative partner and I were like super new to this, created our first series last year, but we came into it with a very kind of strong entrepreneurial mindset, and we're making money off this. This is not something we want to, just put out for fun. And just last week, we were lucky enough to finalize our first licensing deal. So we want to know, because now we're like, all right, what's next for us? And from again, thinking about we want to keep making money and be able to keep creating. And we're kind of struggling to figure out what our next move should be in from that path. We have other series that we want to write. We could do part 2, season 2. What would you suggest we do? Again, thinking about making money, what do you suggest that we do?
It is the question. This is the point. You've got your thing. There's a gauntlet to get to that point. You got your thing made, and you got it licensed and seen, and now you have momentum.
Yeah, it's not even out yet. So it'll be out this fall. So it hasn't been seen yet.
Good
but
for
it's
you.
been
Yeah,
licensed,
so about to be seen. That is a lot of steps to get to that point, as we all know. So good for you.
And what's the project called?
Wallflower.
Wallflower. Wildflower.
Wallflower.
Wallflower.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I would start with the root and ask you the question of, have you looked at media funding and different organizations that help support that?
Like grants and stuff?
Great, yeah.
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, obviously, that's sort of one area that can help with building that profit gain. But outside of that, I mean, does anybody else have thoughts on that?
So you got to get to air to know your season 2. You heard Zach. He's like, he needs to know how this thing performs, and it's a high bar. Short form or?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a series.
Yeah. So it's a high bar for the short form series. It's got to overperform to get that season 2, because as Zach was describing, that season 2. But everyone here has said investing in people and projects. So thinking of yourself as a slate. Do you have a slate going, or do you have like other projects?
We're like super new. like,
I think an important next step
Yeah.
is that slate development and a
Yes.
lot of the creativity. The reality of working in a creative world, I say it all the time, is actually it's just timing sometimes. It's really dumb. You have a great idea, it's a no for like 5 years, and then all of a sudden everyone wants this thing that everyone was saying no to, and it's like they all knew all along, of course. And it's almost like there's no, I like Bill Murray's. It was for Lost in Translation, and he accepted the Academy Award and said, there's so many people trying to take credit for this, I don't know who to thank first. Sometimes I feel that way about our projects. It's like, you got to know for so long, and all of a sudden, it's hot. And it actually is just timing. It's funny. It's budgets. There's a cyclical nature to things. And so you need to have multiple projects going. That's just the reality. And you should probably diversify a bit, like scripted and unscripted. I've seen that. You can go all scripted. That's one of my advices is like, get a couple things going while you have that you're hot, you have some conversations happening, here's my other stuff.
So the other things because we have started writing some other things, so the other things that we've started writing, you think start pitching those things to...
Yeah.
And the platform you're on is going to want to see some success, but you're already right there. They licensed it, so you're going to like, I've got some other stuff. Do you want to see it now? Do you want to wait? Do you want to, and I'm going to go talk to other platforms about my stuff, and meanwhile they found you, so
Gotcha.
are they, you got to, you're in a point where you got to start talking to people about other projects, because you're holding on season 2 until you have results on season 1.
Got you. Thank you. That was
And it's
helpful.
very, like, it's not a linear career. Like, I think as a creative, if I think about the spread of, like, my CV is like vomit everywhere. It just goes, like, I don't even know how I got to where I get sometimes, and I forget how many things I've done to get there. And, like, I'll wrap up with SBS early next year because I want to go back into my own creative practice. So I got this job at SBS because I was doing clearances. I was doing art department clearances. It's just a job between jobs, but knowing that it's in the industry, careers are built on your networks. Like, that's how opportunity happens. And so I got this job by doing clearances for the head of scripted when she was producing. She got a job as head of scripted, didn't know I worked in development and production, put my hand up for it. But what she knew of me was that I really worked hard and I was a good person to work with. And that was really fundamental to how I got this job as commissioning editor. And if I think about the opportunities that are waiting at the door for me when I leave SBS in terms of being creative and writing on long form, are so much more substantial than when I started at SBS. And that is not founded on people reading my work or seeing my films. That is founded on the very fact that they talk about story with me and there's something that they're interested in, and I'm a reasonably good person to work with. So I would just really encourage you to think a bit more laterally about your career, and that it is like careers are built on those relationships. And if you're good to work with, and it doesn't matter if you're like I did a sustainability job. I was like sifting through recycling before I started at SBS, and I'm always happy to do that because it has never failed me in paying off in terms of seeking further opportunities or asking for people to help me in the industry.
Thank you.
I have one more thought that came to me. So I'm going to touch on what John said about sort of building your slate and maybe positioning or asking yourself the question when it comes to Wallflower, like, is this a particular project that can be, like, do you want to expand on that universe and continue forward with that, as well as have additional projects under your slate? And then when I look at projects and things that have been very successful for us at Bell Media, is we look at things from is this sort of a franchisable and merchandisable type of universe? We have a show coming out on Crave called Bria Mac Gets a Life, October 13th, that we're very stoked about. And New Metric Media have been exceptional partners. Of course, their breakout format was Letterkenny back in the day. And that's the way they are really approaching their projects. It's like, can this universe be expanded? And if so, yeah, don't necessarily just look at it as, a one-off series project, but what other sort of mediums and products and offerings can you build upon that universe?
Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank all of you.
Other questions? You choose, Werner. I don't. Yeah. Okay. Right there. Yeah. Keep. Right there, and then the back, and then we'll come to the front. I gotta.
There we go. Hi, everyone.
You see my game.
I'm James. Thank you very much for the engaging discussion so far. I wanted to talk a little bit more about FAST. So one of the reasons I love it is because it takes away the decision fatigue of scrolling endlessly through what you want to see. Though it was touched upon that the economic uncertainty could be a reason as well. Do you see that as a major factor going forward? And if so, is it going to be cyclical in popularity like, economic uncertainty? More people, markets are bad. Less people, markets are good.
I think it really depends on how the industry seizes this moment, because a lot of people don't even know what fast is, So, and I think we're still missing that moment where it blows up. So, because, it's very much lean back television, sort of. You're right, it kind of takes away you don't have to make decisions. A lot of people like to maybe have it on in the background or while they cook or something like that. So I feel like we're missing a moment where really, that forces people to pay attention to it. And if it can get to that point, I don't see a reason why it wouldn't be like free TV is or used to be, but that being said, I think it's definitely right now a moment because of the economic uncertainty. I think, but I think it's there to stay. It's just a matter of time. I think we're waiting for the big moment, and it's going to be able to compete with the other platforms. It's just a matter of time.
I think it's a fair answer that hasn't peaked yet, and I kind of prefer the VOD product. When the VOD product came out and became subscription, it was a real disruptor. But and when FAST came out, people were kind of like, well, that's just like what we just disrupted. Like it's the same, it's literally a cable grid with like live channels. Like, what are you talking about? But I actually believe, even though I kind of prefer the VOD plan, I think it's going to succeed because the F stands for free, and that is that there is a rise in free and an attitude towards free. And it's a good product. And that product that was disrupted, those cable channel grids, it's a good product. It's a bundle of channels that, and so they just ended up kind of blowing their own business model up by forcing subscribers and ads. And so FAST now seems to be filling that void, which is the best parts of that product. Predicting technology is a fool's game, so we'll see what happens. And eventually those people will become greedy and throw a subscription layer on top of their FAST model, and then they've screwed themselves. But I don't think it's peaked at all, and I do think it has some legs because it's a good product and it's free. So we're still going to the back there. Is that right?
Thank you.
Back in the. Okay. Yep. So, yeah. Okay, Warner. We gotta run. We gotta keep going. Yeah.
Hi everyone.
Oh, Warner up here.
My name is Bruno. I'm from Uruguay. And I am presenting a series here, but by the way, it's going to be presented in the blog at 3:10 p.m. The series is called El Universo Conspira, The Universe Conspires. And the thing is that we made the series with a really low budget, and we have a season, a whole season finished, and we do a co-production with an Argentinian digital channel. And the thing is that this channel is going to release the series next month on YouTube. And the contract that we signed, I don't know how to say it in English, el acuerdo that we made, it's that they can block the series on different parts of the world if we find some platforms in order to put it on platforms. And I just want to know if you think that it's a good business model, like to work in this way, like to put it before on YouTube, which we know that it's like a global channel, a free content channel that everyone can access. But if the content has not good publicity or advertisements, it could be like not profitable as other platforms or distributable as other platforms. So do you think that it's a good business model to work in that way? Or for example, if you have some content done, if it is good, for example, to wait to find a platform or to wait to find another channel and not to show it or expose it on YouTube.
Yeah, smart question, smart question. Just pass the mic forward to the woman in the yellow. Oh, okay, Warner, you got to run up front. I'm sorry, you got to grab the mic. In the blue shirt up front. Any question? Yeah.
It's a really tough question. I think obviously you get the exposure by putting it on YouTube, and hopefully millions of people that would never have seen it get to see it. If you're still out there trying to find a buyer, it obviously would impact the value in terms of what they might be willing to offer for a license for their territory, and yet you might not have even had that conversation if you hadn't released it on YouTube and had that audience and built it up. And I think it is a question you've got to ask yourself. Like, you've got this completed product, you don't currently have a partner to work with in releasing it, and it's a tough one. I think it's definitely project by project, and best case scenario, it gets out there. So many people see it that it leads to A, other opportunities, or B, licensing deals. Again, maybe ones that are a little smaller because X amount of people in that territory have already seen it. But at least they're getting on other platforms. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that's a very helpful answer, but it's a hard question. And I would just say specifically on Gem, we have acquired shows that had been released on YouTube and had seen some success and had generated a conversation. And when we've done that, with only one exception, the sort of end game on our side was to develop another season. We thought, let's pick this up. And in fact, we would leave the show on YouTube. We wouldn't pull it down because there was already community around it. We would also put it on Gem, and then we'd say, let's develop some more. And that's always with, in our case, being a public broadcaster with Canadian talent. So those are situations that have worked out really well for us. But I hear you. It's a tricky one. I don't know that there's a right answer, but it's got to be right for you, I think.
Yeah, I think I agree that there's no right answer. But I think you touched on two things that not everyone might be aware of. One of them is that having the premiere rights available does usually come with a higher license fee. So people might not be fully aware that if you have it on YouTube, some buyers might consider that as, it's been out there. If we put this on our channel, we don't have the premiere anymore. And the second thing is that people might not be aware that you can geo-block certain territories, So
on YouTube.
On YouTube, yeah. So we've definitely had that before where the producer has it globally available. And we have it in our contract that should we find a buyer who requires exclusivity in certain territories, you're just going to take just that territory out of your YouTube feed. You still have it everywhere else in the world, but in France, where the broadcaster wanted exclusivity, you're going to block it. So while I don't have an answer really for your question, it's very good to be aware of those factors and just kind of consider what your audience is, yeah.
In the front with the blue shirt.
No,
go ahead. Yeah.
Just had a quick question for everybody. Maybe this is more on the scripted side, but Canadian content that seems to lay into the Canadian tropes, specifically Letterkenny, and other shows that have come out of Canada that, like I said, really lay into the Canadian tropes. What is it that seems to really have an interesting, broader appeal from places outside of Canada that is really Canadian specific and lays into, because it seems like there's been great success in the past from many shows and brands that have seen that success outside that is really Canadian focused.
I mean, I think about that a lot, especially, again, I mentioned my current role at CBC earlier this year. On the comedy side, that includes Son of a Critch, which is, firmly rooted in Newfoundland, period piece as well, and that'll be on the CW now too, and I'm so curious to see how is that going to resonate in the States. But I think there's a precedent with Letterkenny and with Trailer Park Boys, and you're absolutely right. It's it seems to travel very well, this Canadian specificity. So I think as far as why, I guess it's maybe curiosity about neighbors that you never fully understood. Probably, for a certain segment of an American population, maybe thinking this represents more of Canada than it does, as opposed to a specific community or a style. But it's great. It's cool to see. I think that's something to mine. We think about, as programmers, we're thinking about it all the time. What are those voices that, again, that are so interesting that you just either because of the syntax, the jargon, or just the way of life, that it's people are going to be fascinated by this, and it's also rooted in reality. These are kind of heightened but real people. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can add to that a little bit as well. I mean, I think there's a global interest in seeing different parts of Canada. So from a geographical standpoint, like Toronto is very hot right now. So highlighting the city in your content is something that I think has helped with finding that intrigue. And then I'd also consider, I mean, highlighting potentially Canadian talent and specific voices in our country and our heritage. We have a show coming out as well. I'm just with the plugs today. But another show on Crave called I Have Nothing, which centers around a Canadian comedian who's embarking on this journey where she's always wanted to attempt, she envisioned a performance of Whitney Houston's I Have Nothing as a figure skater. And so she's actually going back to 80s and 90s professional Olympian Canadian figure skaters and making that attempt. So again, very specific area, but identifying talent that are in our space and those unique voices.
So the woman in the yellow, and then we're coming to you in the back.
Hi, everyone. So I have a series that I'm currently working on the pilot episode for season 2. Season 1 was on my YouTube channel that I self-funded. Shout out to Ontario Creates and CMF for that. Thank you for funding me for that. What I wanted to know is, for someone who's coming from a YouTube background, what would be the benefit of probably looking towards having content on the fast channels before leaping towards maybe like a Crave or the other ones that are not fast channels? Yeah, I don't know if my question makes sense, but what are the benefits I get?
I think it's a smart question. You've developed your experience as YouTube and self-publishing. Is the next step that finished product on fast, ad support? It's a similar model, and then you go for licensing, subscription platform.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder what you think about it. I feel like you're fine on YouTube. Like, you probably have a bigger audience. I don't know what your revenue looks like there, but you have, you get all the revenue yourself. You're not having to share with any, except for YouTube, you don't have to share with any distributors or additional platforms. And you probably have a more direct connection to your audience there. So I feel like it'd be fair to then now try to get onto a streamer or broadcaster rather than a fast platform, especially since fast is not quite there yet when it comes to scripted, in my opinion. So curious what you guys all think, but that's sort of what I would say to that.
There's a question I realized, because you said it was 60-40 split, 60 for the creator, 40 for the platform?
Yeah, I think most common is 50-50, but 60-40 we've seen as well, but 40 goes to the platform, 60 to the creator.
But I realized, are the ad rates different on fast channels? Are they charging more? Is your 50% on a fast channel with lower audience a bigger cut than 50% of YouTube where you're getting paid a penny for 1 million views?
Yeah, it's a good question. I actually don't know the answer. Because I'm not in the ad department of our fast channels, I actually don't know what specifically those rev shares look like. But
anyone in the room have any experience with that? That's because the different platforms have different. I know for YouTube. It's like $7 to $14 per 1,000 views. Yeah, so I'm very curious what that is on fast channels. It may be something to look into, and this is why we're entrepreneurs and creators. We have to actually. That lower audience with the same split might actually be worth more money than just self-publishing on a platform, because YouTube is and TikTok, etc. They're into volume. They just want the whole world to upload, and they have so much ad avails, and they have more ad inventory than they do sales, which is why their ad prices, basically the volume that Google and Facebook create, have arbitraged the value of ads. And I'm very curious if the fast channels are maintaining a premium ad price, which actually may be worth your while. I also don't know the answer to that. That's something to look into. As entrepreneurs, in the corner there, very politely waiting all this time.
That's all right. Hi, I'm David. I'm from Absolved Episodic Narrative. I was the writer and the actor in it. And we would call it a web series. I appreciate that we're trying to shift that a little bit more to short form. I think that's a good idea. Our little tagline was episodic narrative. But my question with regard to Fast, I've had Pluto, and I have it on my phone. I'll tend to watch it from time to time, like probably many people here. And I haven't researched it that much because I'm getting to the point, we just finished our festival circuit for season 1 and we're beginning our festival circuit for season 2, and we haven't released it publicly yet. We kept it in the festivals. And can you give me some insight? Is there a space for in these fast networks for me, like Pluto and I think TiVo also, or Tubi?
Tubi,
yeah. For short form series episodes, and mine tend to be in the 15 minutes long range. We try to keep it in 15 minutes. Is there a space for that in there? Because from my own personal experience, I see like MASH reruns, which is cool, or it's Mystery Science Theater, and these are recognized brands. But is there a space for lesser known and smaller sized series?
Have you sold short form into any of the fast channels?
So that basically no. So, or at least not yet. Or at least not yet, Like I kind of alluded to before, I think the space is growing and it's growing fairly quickly, and hopefully it will get to a point where that's sort of a realistic thing for you to look at. But it feels like, I don't know where you feel like you're at with the project, but you're probably trying to build an audience. You're trying to get people interested in it. And like you just said, Fast right now, to a big degree, relies on people already knowing, MASH, already knowing Fresh Prince, already knowing, a certain genre of potentially maybe factual content. And it might be less of a platform for people to tune in to actually find new stuff. Like I said, it's a little bit of a lean back. I'm just tuning in, I'm going to let this run. And I know whenever I turn my face towards the screen, I'll see something that I like because I remember it or I like the genre. So to me personally, it feels like right now for emerging filmmakers, you're probably still better off on YouTube in terms of building an audience or other, TikTok or whatever. But hopefully down the line, there's a home on Fast somewhere once someone figures that out.
I'm going to add just from, my research on the landscape. When it comes to the streamers that obviously exist in the global landscape, I noticed that Netflix is actually investing in short form comedy, and I believe it's just available on mobile. But they're playing in that space. I don't know if your series is comedy, but either way, it's something for companies like Bell Media, as an example, to be looking at when we're looking at additional digital product features for Crave and, evaluating the opportunity there. So it might not exist today, but as Lucas said, it might be something that we would be evaluating in the future. Yeah.
It's an extremely relevant question. So I think we're at a time, just to summarize honestly on that question, it feels like the fast channels, while they're new and emerging, they're really being built on this archive library TV while they figure out their business model and figure out their audience size, and they race in that sense. There are short form series on Netflix today. Even beyond this, they're sort of commissioning them. Roku bought the Quibi library, and they started of all short form content and they're now into season 2 and season 3s. So there's a market for short form content for sure. I also, when you think of that fast channels and the rise that you've heard of, the way the relevance to you guys would be to think about now packaging back into those linear windows that have ad breaks. And so we fund 20 minutes or less, but I'm going to need to start talking to producers about thinking 2 11s equal 22, and that's a half hour filled with ads. So that time constraint is now entering back into the conversation. Not there yet, but today it sounds like the best platforms are still SVOD or self-publishing and growing your audience and turning it into a TV deal, a full-length TV deal. All right, so I think that's it. Thank you very much. Thank you to our panel. Great discussion. Thank you.